Already started. Okay, good evening and welcome to this May 6th meeting of the Somerville School Committee. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2024, this meeting of the School Committee will be conducted via hybrid participation. We will post an audio recording, audio-video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of these proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting on the City of Somerville website and local cable access government channels. With that, Dr. Carmona, will you please call the roll?
Yes, I will. Ms. Barish.
Here.
Mayor Ballantyne. President Owen Campen. Mr. Green.
Here.
Mr. Bitton.
Here.
Ms. Bitton.
Here.
Dr. Ackman.
Here.
Dr. Phillips.
Here.
Chair Krebsen.
Here.
We have quorum.
Now I will introduce our interpreters. Haitian Creole, will you please unmute yourself?
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Angie Supri. I'll be the Haitian Creole interpreter for you for tonight. Bonsoir tout le monde, nom c'est Angie Supri. Moi c'est interprète pour nous à soir. Si vous besoin créole haïtien, cliquez sur le globe en bas écran, choisissez français pour créole haïtien. Merci.
Thank you. And Spanish, will you please introduce yourself?
Good evening, everyone. This is your Spanish interpreter, Tracy Pichardo. Buenas noches todos, mi nombre es Tracy Pichardo, seré su intérprete de español esta noche. Para escuchar esta reunión, haga un clic en el globo en la parte inferior de su pantalla y seleccione su idioma. Muchas gracias. Thank you.
Thank you. And we will now have a moment of silence and a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, in God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we will start with our report of student representatives. I have two on Zoom with us this evening. Would you like to give us your report?
Sure. So I would say the biggest thing this week would be starting AP tests. There's one block that starts at 7:30 a.m. and another that starts at 11:30 a.m. for tests, and it will continue until Friday of next week. Another thing would be spring sports are well underway, and a major highlight would be some of our track athletes qualifying for the state meet, which is pretty nice.
Good evening. So this week will be the last week that the class of 2024 will be selling tickets for the senior prom at night on Cloud 9, which will be next Friday on May 17th, with hopes of having a final estimate of our prom attendance. Secondly, the NHS has organized a teacher's luncheon on Wednesday morning to celebrate Teacher Appreciation Week. Lastly, in continued celebration of the commencement of the Class Cup Olympics, there will be an ice cream social this Friday at 2 p.m. with Gracie's Ice Cream to celebrate the seniors who won this year's Class Cup Olympics. Thank you.
Great, thank you both for that. Are there any questions or comments for our student reps? That's all exciting news, thank you. That brings us to public comment. I will read our public comment instructions, and then I will call you up, call 3 names at a time so you know who's coming up next. Welcome and thank you to those who have signed up for public comment. Speakers will be allowed 3 minutes to present their material. However, the chair may limit comments to 2 minutes based on the number of individuals signed up to speak. And given that we have 11 people this evening, I will be limiting it to 2 minutes. And just so you know, the screens here will have a timer, so you will know when it's close to your time up. Speakers should begin their comments by stating their name and address, or in the case of district employees, their role within the district. The chair of the meeting, after a warning, reserves the right to terminate speech which is not constitutionally protected because it constitutes true threats that are likely to provoke, a violent reaction and cause a breach of peace or incitement to imminent lawless conduct, or which contains obscenities. Public comment is not a discussion, debate, or dialogue between the public and the committee. Members of the committee will not reply to public comment in the course of the meeting, though individual members may follow up, and items from public comment may be taken up in future meetings. The school committee will not hear personal complaints of school personnel, nor against any member of the school community in public session. Individuals may address topics on the agenda or items within the school committee's scope of responsibility, such as the district budget, goals and policies, or role of the superintendent. The public is encouraged to submit comments in writing for inclusion in the public record. So with that, and if I mispronounce your name, please correct me at the beginning of your comment, and I apologize in advance. I have Jamal Halawa, Hala Jadala, and then Samantha Kaveni. Jamal, the floor is yours.
My name is Jamal Halawa. I am a Palestinian and a child of the Palestinian diaspora. I'm a parent of a graduate of Somerville Public Schools and a father to another child in Somerville Public Schools. I'm a teacher at the high school. I'm here to address comments made by Mr. Bitone, school committee member from Ward 7 in the last school committee meeting. Last school committee meeting, Mr. Bitone made a call to censor student voices in Somerville. A call to threaten, punish, and censor our students because their call for freedom for Palestinians who are right now suffering a genocide at the hands of Israel. Mr. Bitone compared our students, who are bravely speaking out against a genocide, in the midst of doxing, police violence, assaults, shootings, and verbal harassment here in Somerville, he compared those brave young students to white supremacists. The rest of you accepted that. You said nothing. Let's examine the phrase in question that Mr. Bitone brings up. In Arabic we say, Min al-maya lil-maya, Palestine Arabiya. That means, from the water to the water, Palestine is Arabic. This is a phrase that predates Hamas and PLO. This is a slogan from the time of the Sykes-Picot Agreement, when the British and French divided up the Arab world. This now, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. This is a phrase that calls for a single state with equal rights for all the indigenous people who lived there before and after 1948. This is a call for freedom in all places where we Palestinians are not free. In Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza, between the river and the sea, this is our ancestors' land, a place where we do not have the right to return or build a home, the right to protest. It's a call for our freedom. In the illegally occupied West Bank, where settlers attacked Palestinians with guns provided by the Israeli government, where my father was captured and tortured by the IDF, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. That is a call for our freedom. To equate our students who are calling for our freedom with white supremacists and to try to censor them and threaten them and intimidate them is absolutely morally corrupt. And if you all don't say something,
your time is up.
You're in the same boat.
Thank you. Your time is up. Next, I have Hala Jadala, then Samantha Kaveni, and then Nicholas Thompson. Hala, the floor is yours.
My name is Hala Jadala, former student at Somerville High School, graduate of Somerville High School. Censoring the students is not a good thing, because everybody wants to take our freedom of speech away. It's okay if we take that phrase that he just said and not say it. That's what you think it's okay for. But we hear every day, death to the Arabs, wipe them off the earth. And this is what they're doing in Gaza right now. And I think these students are so brave. I support them 1,000%. They wanna walk out of school. They're much braver than I was when I was their age. There's so much social media going on. You need to let them have their freedom of speech, because if you take away their freedom of speech, I don't know what will happen to the high school.Maybe more than 126 students will walk out. Maybe the whole school will walk out, because you need to censor everybody. You can't say anything.
Have Samantha Kaveni, Nicholas Thompson, and then Giovanna Calvillo. Samantha, the floor is yours.
Hello. My name is Samantha Kaveni. I am a resident of Ward 5, and I recently attended a rally that Somerville High School students attended. I'm also here to respond to Mr. Bitone's statement regarding the phrase "from the river to the sea." My husband helped supervise the Somerville High School students as they walked out on Friday, April 26th, and I joined them at a rally at Tufts University's student encampment. We were both deeply moved by the actions of these students, who stood with a clear moral compass for the end of a horrific genocide. Mr. Bitone characterized the students' protest slogan, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free," as, quote, "a call for the eradication of Jews entirely from the area between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea in what is now Israel." This is simply false. Mr. Bitton claims that the phrase was originally adopted by the PLO and later by Hamas as, quote, a call for ethnic cleansing or genocide. In fact, according to historian Robin D.G. Kelly, the phrase began as a Zionist slogan signifying the boundaries of Israel. Israeli politicians have used the slogan in decades since as a clear call for colonizing Palestinian land, whereas Palestinians have used the phrase primarily as a call for peace and decolonization. Jewish Voices for Peace even uses a version of the phrase in the statement of their vision. Quote, we picture Palestinians from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea living with their inalienable rights respected, building schools and hospitals, and planting olive groves with the resources they need. The logical conclusion of the phrase from the river to the sea is not, quote, the annihilation of Jews from the state of Israel, as Mr. Bitton claimed, but this vision where Palestinian students, just like our students at Somerville High School, can live free from apartheid, colonialism, and genocide. I agree with Mr. Bitton that harmful racist and anti-Semitic speech should not be tolerated on school property. It is ridiculous to claim that this protest slogan meets those criteria, and Mr. Bitton's concern over this phrase dilutes the real harm that racist and anti-Semitic speech can cause. No students should be disciplined for their use of a slogan grounded in liberation.
I have Nicholas Thompson, then Giovanna Calvillo, and then Eliana Dietz. Nicholas, the floor is yours.
My name is Nick Thompson. I live at 270 Highland Ave in Somerville, and I'm here today to respond to Mr. Bitton's comments from last week. Toni Morrison told us, quote, the very serious function of racism is distraction. It keeps you from doing your work. It keeps you explaining over and over again your reason for being. None of this is necessary. There will always be one more thing. Anti-Palestinian racism has shown us over and over again that Palestinians and supporters of the Palestine movement must find the perfect words to articulate their cause and their desire for liberation, or else they should not be taken seriously. We will not let comments like this distract us. We can all argue the specific origins of specific phrases, but what is the point of arguing semantics when every day over 164 people are killed in Gaza and over 377 injured? Why, Mr. Bitton and the rest of this council, are you more concerned with wrongly claiming that the speech of students is anti-Semitic than with interrogating the real ties that the school committee has to the genocidal regime of Israel, including its contract with HP? What power structures are you upholding by privileging the purported violence of speech over the real violence of bombs? That is distressing the students in your district so much that they're walking out again and again and again to protest it. Mr. Bitton also criticized students' use of face coverings, liking face coverings to what the white nationalists do at their protests. This criticism shows a clear lack of understanding of this liberatory and love-centered movement. I'm standing here today wearing a face mask because there is an ongoing pandemic in this country. I will do everything I can to keep the people in my community safe. The brave university and high school students have taken up this same call to protect one another from a disabling airborne virus. Mr. Bitton is an air quality specialist. This is something that you should have an idea of. I encourage the school committee not to discipline any students for standing up righteously against genocide, nor to change the school's absence policy for protests. Thank you.
Next, I have Giovanna Calvillo, Eliana Dietz, and then Elena Bloomfield. Giovanna, the floor is yours.
Hello, my name is Giovanna Calvillo. I reside in Ward 7, and I'm a therapist and social worker. As my fellow resident said, I was deeply upset to hear that there was an allegation said by one of the members here towards the high school students who are children. And I've been using their voices to speak up for the current genocide and injustices occurring against Palestinians, an allegation that equated them to dangerous, violent white supremacists during last week's school meeting. These are children. I'm appalled that there are these allegations. Meanwhile, there were real threats directed towards these students and school staff for standing up for Palestine, including specific sexual assault threats that were recorded, and my understanding is they have still not been addressed. These students are being bullied by adults at this point, and I would hate for them to be penalized for using their freedom of speech. I'm becoming more concerned about the tolerance of bullying kids who are speaking up by adults. What are we going to do to make sure these kids aren't being bullied, discouraged, or unsafe for using their freedom of speech? I heard the students' testimonies a few months ago at this school meeting about their frustration with the indifference and censorship from their school regarding the current genocide. Some reported an increase in Islamophobia and anti-Palestinian sentiments. Have you done anything about this? These are good kids I've gotten to know and see from their organizing. They are very kind, intentional, and braver than most adults for speaking up and using their voices to speak for justice. They should be lauded, not bullied and criticized. Please take this into consideration. Thank you.
Next, I have Elena Dietz, Elena Bloomfield, and then Richard Maidman.
Hello, my name is Elena Dietz, and I'm a college and career counseling partner at Somerville High School. I decided to speak today because I'm extremely concerned with the statements made by Councilmember Baton last meeting regarding students' right to free speech and their right to protest. When I first began working at SHS in this last fall, my co-advisor proudly explained to me that Somerville is a city and a school district, is a leader in social justice and progress. As you would expect, I was shocked to hear the exploitative rhetoric utilized by the counselor last week. While the counselor repeatedly attempted to redefine the meaning of the liberation call from the river to the sea, he failed to acknowledge the reason why students would be chanting that phrase. Words and chants are not genocide. Students protesting and denouncing murder. The murder of over 40,000 Palestinians is not genocide. The concrete actions taken by the apartheid state of Israel and its occupational forces, which have resulted in the murder of over 40,000 Palestinians, that is genocide. And to suggest that students calling for the liberation of Palestinian people is a hateful act of violence is violent itself. To use the language of those fighting to end the murder of innocent people as a weapon of suppression is not aligned with the progressive values Somerville High School purports to instill. I want to reiterate that I'm a college and career counselor at Somerville High School. For the past year, I've spent every day deeply invested in ensuring Somerville High School students leave high school with clear and achievable post-secondary plans and goals. I'm equally invested in advocating for policies and practices within the high school to prepare students for their futures after high school. Who am I or any of us to deny the students the right to protest the killing of young adults who once had bright futures just like our students? I do not believe that adding stipulations and barriers to student protest will advance our students' ability to become capable, active participants in our community in the future. Thank you.
Next, I have Elena Bloomfield, Richard Maidman, and then Rami Bridge. Elena, the floor is yours.
I'm Ilana Bloomfield. I live in West Somerville. I'm really very grateful to Councilperson Bouton's comments at the last meeting, and I wanted to stand in support of that. I'm a family physician and a mother of a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old who are both at the West Somerville Neighborhood School. And I've thought a lot about how we can make communities safe and inclusive. The frame that keeps resounding in my mind is intent and impact. The intent is, what do we mean when we say something? And the impact, how do others experience what I say? Phrases like from the river to the sea are such barriers to dialogue because they can be, and maybe not in everyone's mind, but they certainly can be harmful, both in intent and certainly in impact. I have chosen to live and work in a professional and personal community that privileges words, that honors both the intent of what I say and do and the impact of my work and my words. I've always deeply valued the belief that Somerville Schools fosters a community that manifests these same values. We, all of us, have chosen a community and have chosen to build this together. That is not easy work, and it is so vulnerable and so hard. For us to do this hard work, we need to shed the most divisive and hurtful phrases so that we can build bridges. I see and I feel that all of us are grieving, and I recognize that we can lose ourselves in our humanity, in our grief. As we seek to find a way forward, I urge all of us to pause, to reflect, to reach out, to bring in, and to hold authentic complexity. Thank you. Thank you all.
Next, I have Richard Maidman, then Rami Bridge, and then Meredith Elbaum.
Good evening, members of the council. My name is Richard Bateman. I live at 18 Sterling Street in Somerville. I have 2 kids in Somerville schools. I'm a lawyer. I specialize in international law. And I've heard a lot of legal talk today, legal comments. I've heard a lot of factual comments that are incorrect. I'm not going to address those now, but I would like to address 2 points with the committee. First, I'd like to bring to the committee's attention that there was a bipartisan U.S. House resolution on this phrase that declared it hate speech. So I'd like that to be on the committee's mind. Somerville schools have the legal responsibility to create and maintain a safe learning environment for all students. This obligation is especially true regardless of race, national origin, or religion, to name a few of the particularly protected classes. Conduct that breaches those obligations is not permitted, and Somerville Schools has the responsibility to ensure that. This dovetails with my second point. We live in Somerville because of the rich diversity of our community. We desire a community where our students are taught the value of dialogue around our differences, a community where they feel safe and uplifted as Jews, Americans, and all of their other wonderful traits. We do not aspire to live in a community where people are competing to see who can be the loudest and who can make the most noise. Beyond the offensive meaning and origin of the chant "River to the Sea," permitting mobs of students to chant such slogans makes our schools unsafe and unwelcoming. Regardless of intent, it is the impact on our students and community that matters most. Thank you.
Next, I have Rami Bridge, and then Meredith Elbaum, and then Abu Bakr Al-Wahab. Rami, the floor is yours.
My name is Rami Bridge, and I live in Magoon Square. I am speaking tonight in direct response to what the school committee member from Ward 7 said last week. He said that the chant "From the river to the sea will be free," "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free," is violent. He said it is a call for the eradication of Jews in the area between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea. And he said it is a call for ethnic cleansing and genocide. This is one possible understanding of what this phrase means, and frankly, it's the interpretation that I was taught growing up with in the Jewish community. It is not the only understanding, though. According to an article in Jewish Currents, the phrase's origins go back farther than the member from Ward 7 suggests, and was, quote, part of a larger call to see a secular democratic state established in all of historic Palestine. Rather than tell people what they mean, we could listen to them. In November, Rashida Tlaib, the only Palestinian-American member of Congress, explained that to her, quote, it is an aspirational call for freedom, human rights, and peaceful coexistence, not death, destruction, or hate. To me, as a Jew, when I chant "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free," I am calling for liberation for all people living in mandatory Palestine. According to the member from Ward 7, that makes me anti-Semitic. It is perverse and grotesque to suggest that students at Somerville High School are using genocidal language or promoting ethnic cleansing as they are protesting what the International Court of Justice has described as a plausible genocide. And to go one step farther, for a member of this committee to use their positional power and privilege to push for the district to silence student protest is shocking and outrageous, particularly in light of the way we are seeing universities respond to student protest. I did not expect to see us discussing policing free speech and protest here in Somerville. Your words on this committee have meaning. The member from Ward 7 highlighted the impact that the phrase has on members of our community who are Jewish and a family in Israel, reminding us that people who live in Israel face daily threats and violence. I want to remind you all that this is the first thing anyone on this committee has said about the horrors in Gaza since Somerville High School students came to you in February. Let's keep in mind who between the river and the sea is facing ethnic cleansing and genocide, and as you do, consider the impact that your words and your silence has on members of our community with family in Gaza or the West Bank. And I'm going to close by saying very clearly, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
Next, I have Meredith Elbaum, and then Abu Bakr Al-Wahab.
Thank you. There's so much pain, just so much pain right now. I'm feeling the pain here, I'm feeling the pain there. Phrases that are said mean different things to different people. I'm scared for my kids. I think about them wearing their shirts from preschool that have Hebrew letters on them and whether I should let them out of my house. I want to be with our neighbors and for be talking about ways we can all live together in peace and not have to be hearing phrases that I interpret as being hateful and not caring about my family and friends in Israel. I'm in support of Council Member Bitton today, and I think what we're asking for is for more dialogue, for us to think about and to educate our students. I would be proud of our students if we were having dialogue with them instead of chanting. If we were asking them, what is the solution? How can maybe we have debate teams. Maybe we encourage more dialogue as opposed to speech that's driving us apart, that's driving our neighbors apart. I didn't say I live on Prospect Hill, and I have neighbors in this room, and I want us to be together, not be driven apart. And so I also do urge the council to think about the policies around leaving school and put some restrictions around walkouts and marching, that there should be some times about that. And I would say that personally, if I had a kid at the high school right now, my kids are in junior high and elementary school, I would feel very anxious about sending them there, and they would not feel safe. And there's something to address in that.
Okay. And then I have Abu Bakr al-Wahab.
Good evening, my fellow teachers and educators. My name is Abu Bakr al-Wahab. I'm a resident of Somerville. I'm an Iraqi citizen, American resident. I was born and raised during the war in Baghdad, 2003 specifically. I was 5 years old when Baghdad was being bombed left and right. And there's so many 5 years old right now in Gaza being bombed left and right. But we back to the comment that was made by one of the counselor. I don't remember his name, neither do I want to, out of respect. That comment stated that Somerville stand against freedom in so many different levels. And that comment turns Somerville within the borders of the state of Massachusetts into North Korea. As we think of other countries that struggle with freedom of speech, of expression, and of any kind of freedom, we think of North Korea and Russia. But right here within Somerville, we're getting really close to that perimeter as we approach the limitation and the censorship of our students. If we can tell our students, hey, chanting certain words will make you labeled as a terrorist, so they can do in North Korea. Thank you.
That concludes public comment, which brings us to the report of the superintendent. Dr. Carmona.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you to all of you who are joining in person or virtual, or our virtual audience. Your presence, feedback is important in our learning process. So thank you very much. So I'm going to have our friends from the CTE program stand up, come up to the podium. They have a long introduction, but I'm going to give the floor to Mr. Hachi, who is the director of the CTE program, and he might probably be able to do a better job in introducing the members of the team, as well as the great messages that we have from CTE.
Thank you, Dr. Carmona. Appreciate the committee's time tonight. And I want to introduce Mr. McElroy and Mr. Bendel, and they're going to talk about our Skills USA experience and going to introduce our students.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Dan Bendel. I've taught at the high school in the CT department in drafting and engineering for 12 years, and I've been happily and proudly an advisor for the Skills USA program since its start 11 years ago. So this year, by far, has been our most successful year. We had 86 CTE students compete in the district's event back in late February, early March. Of those 86 students, 14 went on to the state's level to compete against other Massachusetts schools. I believe there was over 40 other vocational programs, some of which actually spend twice the amount of time in their shop than our students. And then as a result of that conference, that competition, these 3 students that are standing with me, all placed or podiumed with a bronze, silver, and gold medal in their respective shops. One of which, with the gold medal, will now be going on to nationals in June to be able to represent not only Somerville High School, but Team Massachusetts. And I'll let Mr. McElroy actually introduce the students.
Hi, everybody. Oh my God, I'm trying to remember everybody's name. Haley, and this is Sam's my kid, so I know Sam really well. So they medaled in their competitions. Sam will actually be going to the national competition. He got gold. So Atlanta, Georgia for Sam. Excellent.
Do the kids want to talk about their experience? Speak. Go ahead.
Go first.
Go ahead, Sam. Sam, you're the national one. Go ahead. Just talk a little bit about your experience at Skills USA, Sam.
I competed in the advertising design competition from the graphic design visual communication shop at the high school. And it was interesting to see a lot of other trade schools there who, like Mr. Bendel said, spend a lot more time in their shops than we do. It's something that people take very seriously, and so it was fun to be able to be on par with those kids, and I guess definitely on par because now I'm.
Was this your first time competing, or have you done it before?
This was my first time going to States, yeah. But I'm a junior, so hopefully next year again.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Nice job. Anybody else?
I can go. My name is Elle, and I'm in the drafting program, and this is my second time going to States, and I medaled bronze in technical drafting. I don't know, Skills has always been kind of exciting to go to. It makes me feel a lot more connected to my shop, especially since, I don't know, CTE is a little strange here compared to other schools around. It's not as centered, I guess, especially since we're not an actual tech school. So I don't know, Skills makes me feel more connected to my shop and more proud of what I do.
Excellent, thank you. Okay. We will, oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate how proud we are of these students. They work really hard. They spend time studying, and just, I had to do it when I was a high schooler too, and it's a lot of pressure when you sit down in that room, start to read the competition, and you're up against everybody else who's qualified for this, and you're at the highest level. So we really consider it, up there with some of the academics teams at the schools, and this is really what we can do to make CTE shine. So we were happy to share that with you today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And, oh yes, Dr. Ackman?
Thank you. Through the chair, so congratulations. I hope you're proud that your hard work has paid off. That's a big deal. I'm excited for you. Also, sorry you have to go to Atlanta in June. It's going to be hot. I lived there for a few years. But for you, it may seem like technical drafting, advertising. Do you mind giving us a 3-sentence description of either what got you to where you are or what you did? And if you don't want to, that is totally okay. But I would love to know just a little bit more about what won. Because I know we sent a lot more kids, right? And so you created a winning thing, and I would love to hear more about it.
And talk a little bit about it. What you do.
Yeah. So the competition that I got was they try to simulate some element of you're going into the workforce. Vocational competitions are very centered on what this will look like once you graduate and you're working. So my competition was given as a hypothetical client. A person who needed a logo done, a person who needed a menu laid out for them, and then who needed a photocopy of a receipt thingy to be made into a file because the hypothetical client hypothetically lost it. So for me, it was very like, this is the kind of correspondence you'd be doing if you were working, if you were doing this as a job, and this is the way that you would like reply to these instructions in that way.
Thank you, Chair, through you. First of all, to the adults here, thank you for preparing our students to be successful in these situations. But to you students, approaching a competition is a really scary moment. You don't know what it's going to be like. You don't know if you're up for the, the challenge. But I think you'll hear the same things from competitive runners or swimmers, that when you're in that competitive space, you up your game and you do your best work. And you know whether your training has prepared you for that, and clearly it has. So just congratulations, and congratulations for being willing to submit to that challenge, to that unknown. It clearly paid off. So well done.
And with that, Ms. Breton?
Through you, Chair. I'm not pressuring our third student to speak, but I am curious what they competed in. If someone else can share, or you can share, great, thank you.
I also competed, like Elle, I competed in technical drafting. So I was given a butterfly valve for a pipe to create, and I had to CAD that, so I had to make a 3D model of it. I also had to create drawings for it, and I had to assemble it.
Okay. Thank you. I was going to do a few. You want to? Okay, go ahead.
Just a quick thing. I know if we can get a quick update on I know there was a fundraising activity that happened and was very successful. I know this is a partnership with the Boston Bruins and Bosch. So I believe that there was a very successful auction. So do you want to just give us a couple of words on the update?
Sure. And yeah, thank you, Dr. Carmona. So I did not win it, okay? My bid ended a lot sooner than the ultimate bid. So it was a very successful night for our team. And as you can see by the pictures, the students did an outstanding job with those pieces of furniture. And we raised $6,500 and $6,549. So we thank, Bosch for the $7,500 worth of donation of tools, and we thank the Bruins for the sticks, and we thank the kids for creating these great pieces of furniture and the beverage holders, and we're very excited to see what our next partnership looks like. And we do appreciate your support with Skills USA and everything that the committee and Dr. Carmona and his team has supported us throughout the year, and we look forward to the continued support for next year. Thank you.
Ms. Parrish?
I believe there's also another fundraiser going on to help support these students in their competitions.
Yes, there is.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this ends Wednesday. So yeah, so we're fundraising for a raffle of 2 Adirondack chairs and a fire pit. So if you're looking for tickets, you can see Darcy in our office, and or any of us, and we can sell you some tickets. And it's a fundraiser to help offset the cost for Skills USA. Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
John?
I just want to add, through the chair, I have 2 Adirondack chairs that I bought who knows when, and they're amazing. And everyone sits in them and says how comfortable they are. They're not the stuff you're going to get over at Home Depot. So I just want to put that little plug in for the fantastic chairs.
Great. And we will now take a 5-minute recess just so we can say congratulations more intimately if people so choose. So we'll be back in 5 minutes.
Thank you.
because she went in a good way.
My
but-
son was part of the robotics students. You're right. Yeah.
Very patriotic.
That's something else. I was
Yeah. Okay. All right, everyone. We are now back in session, and we will continue with the superintendent's report. Dr. Carmona.
Great, thank you very much. And as you see, we have some members of our community here who are wearing green, and there's a reason for that. So we have an important agenda that is focused on mental health and social emotional learning. And later you're going to hear from our Director of Student Services, Liz Doncaster, on the different and multiple offerings that we have to provide our students in the district the support to address the critical needs that they have, as well as to promote wellness and academic success. But before I get into the agenda today, I want to take a moment to highlight an important observance coming up in this month. We have the Mental Health Awareness Month at Somerville Public Schools, and we firmly believe that mental health and wellness are foundational pillars for academic success. Therefore, nurturing mental health is a critical and crucial aspect of our commitment to student well-being. So throughout this month, our Student Services Department, along with our dedicated staff across the district, will be leading initiatives to raise awareness about mental wellness. Here's what you can expect. Staff will be sharing daily wellness suggestions during morning announcements in our K-8 schools. These tips are designed to promote mental well-being and encourage positive habits. Also keep an eye out for informative posters and materials posted around our school communities. Finally, our staff will be wearing green ribbons throughout May to signify their support for mental health wellness initiatives. We invite everyone to join us in wearing green on May 24th to show your support as well. We want all our students to know that if you are experiencing mental health challenges, you are not alone. Our school counselors and administrators are here to provide support and guidance. Don't hesitate to reach out to your school-based counselors and leaders if you need help. Thank you to our school-based district council and staff, to the Student Services Department, and all our educators and staff who support the social emotional health of all our students. And with that, I'm going to have Liz Doncaster introduce the work that she is doing around our district SEL development plan.
Thank you, Dr. Carmona. I could not have said that better myself. Thank you for having us here this evening. Chair Krepshin and the other members of the school committee. I haven't been here in a while, so it's really nice to show you what we've been doing all this time. We've been working hard in our department. My name is Liz Doncaster. I'm the Director of Student Services. I'm here tonight with my Assistant Director, Larry Silverman, and Nadia Curry, the manager of our school-based social workers. So we wanted to start tonight, am I not seeing them, Erica? Okay, it's okay. So we wanted to start tonight by providing you with the idea, the framework that we are using for the development of our social emotional plan throughout the school year. The next slide is good. So what we use as our framework, as our guiding framework, is the CASEL 5, the foundational skills that we would like our students to have, which is self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, and social awareness. These will be taught through SEL curriculum and instruction. They will be carried through to the school-wide practices and policies in the school community, and then out to the family and community partnerships that we have. We also, our guiding principles was the DESE tiered delivery system for academic, behavior, and social emotional skills. So we have all students, some students, and few students, and a multi-tiered system of supports. You may have all seen this, but I just wanted to show you these are our guiding principles. And then also you have your own school committee goal around conduct referrals and our surveys that we do, and we want to see improvement. Next slide. We want to see improvement through these frameworks, through the delivering of the social emotional second step lessons and restorative justice and the PBIS that every building is going to have. We want to see improvements in lowering our conduct referrals to the office and improvement in our students' conditions for learning surveys and also the youth behavior risk survey. I'm going to bring up Larry. He's going to go through the next slide and next few slides.
Just two. Hi, thank you. It's nice to be here. I'm Larry Silverman, Assistant Director of Student Services. I'm just going to talk about the graphic that you see here, and then a similar, a little bit more specific version on the next slide. You've seen iterations of a diagram like this many times. It's how we present our MTSS services across the district. We use a diagram like this for our academic supports, but obviously we're here tonight talking about our social, emotional learning and mental health supports. So this slide just gives you an overview of what takes place at each tier. Tier 1 is all students, and this is sort of things that are happening every day in classrooms in our school, and things that are happening in other events that take place in our school that focus on social emotional learning for our students and teach them how to have empathy and get along with each other and solve problems. Then we have our second tier, which is what some students receive, which is students who need something a little bit more than what everyone's receiving in Tier 1 at a particular time. These services are usually initiated through an SST meeting or a child study meeting, which is where folks get together and decide what interventions and supports might be beneficial to particular students. And then at the top of the pyramid, you have Tier 3, which is more intensive supports and services, which are for a smaller number of students. And these can also be initiated through SST meetings, but they're also through case conferences, IEP 504 meetings, et cetera. I just want to mention there's a reason why the diagram is particularly drawn this way, that the top tier in red is sort of within the yellow tier, and the yellow tier is within the blue tier. These are not completely separate tiers. If you're receiving a service on Tier 3, you also are still having access to Tier 2 and Tier 1, so it's very intentionally depicted that way. And then if you take a look to the left there's just a little diagram that just sort of drives home the point that at the lower tiers of this system, we're really focusing on social emotional learning, and as we move up the tiers, we're providing more mental health support for those students who are in need of that. So the next slide looks very similar, but this one is actually showing you the specific services and supports and interventions that we have at each level. And I've been told a couple of times by a few people that this slide looks very busy and there's a lot of writing on this slide, and it might be hard to focus on, but I ended up leaving it that way because, well, our teachers and staff are very busy every day providing all of these things, and they all really need to be on there to show everything that we're doing. So if you look at Tier 1, I'm not going to read every service on here, but I just want to highlight a few things. We have our Restorative Justice Initiative Tier 1 down there in the blue. Liz is going to talk a lot about that in some later slides, but that is something that all students are going to be getting on a regular basis in classrooms. We're not fully rolled out with that, but we're making excellent progress towards that goal. Liz will talk more about the timeline of that. And then we also have our second step social emotional curriculum here because all students are receiving that as well. And then I want to just point out at the very bottom of that, second to last on the bottom, and this is not just something that is important to our department, but our schools as a whole, I think it's very important to point out that engaging in culturally responsive curriculum and instruction in all subject areas are part of this pyramid, because it's not just an academic goal, but it also is an important part of our students' social emotional learning. If you go up to Tier 2, you'll see things like Restorative Justice Tier 2, which is a higher level of restorative practice when you're actually trying to address a problem that has come up, which only works if you've established Tier 1. You'll see social worker groups. We're very proud to be in our second year of having our school social workers on board, and we consider social groups, skills groups, things like that the social workers are doing to be a Tier 2 intervention that some students are getting. You also see things like supervisor of attendance home visits, and you see You see embedded counseling on there. Our embedded partners have been a very important part of our social emotional learning and mental health support. And then if you look up at Tier 3, you'll see supports from BCBAs, which are behavior specialists. Nadia is going to talk a little bit later about a new initiative that we have working with BCBA that's going to be coming on board. You'll see our social workers again there. Here we're talking about the same social workers that I was talking about at Tier 2, but at Tier 3 they're doing more individual work and they're doing more wraparound support, helping families get students connected with services in and outside of school. You also see restorative justice Tier 3, so restorative justice falls into all the tiers, and at Tier 3 we're talking about using restorative justice circles when some real harm has taken place and repairing that harm. So these are just some of the things. I hope you'll take the time to look at everything that's listed here, because I'm really proud to say that in Somerville we are doing many things from many different angles to help our students with social emotional growth and mental health support when they need it. So with that, I'll pass to Liz. Next slide.
Next slide. So I wanted to talk a minute about Second Step, the research-based curriculum that we're bringing in from pre-K to 8th grade. It talks about creating through explicit lessons and then other concepts from those units woven into the content areas to create connectedness, a safe environment, respecting school climate, and then building those social emotional skills that I talked about earlier. We have K-5 has 20 lessons, about 20 minutes apiece. I have been talking to principals about where we're going to put these lessons in, and we're looking at, most of them are looking at Wednesdays to have a social emotional learning block. K-6 through 8th grade has 26 lessons. They're about 25, 30 minutes long. It's an online platform, but they also involve a lot of talking and turning and a lot of hands-on lessons, so it's just not looking at a screen. We want to be able to, this year we have 19 classrooms implementing the Second Step curriculum as early adopters, and I'm told by the teachers that it's, the prep is very clear, and it's not laborious prep, and that it's user-friendly platform, and the children are really engaged. We really got really positive feedback from Second Step. And like I said, we are working with principals to carve out an SEL time slot, so it would be lessons that every other week you'd have explicitly taught SEL curriculum through Second Step, and then the next week you would do restorative justice. So they're weaving the two of them together to form their SEL development in the school and learning in the schools. I want to talk a little bit about restorative justice, because we do talk about it, and what exactly is it? It's a restorative practices is what I like to call it, and it really is a foundational community building, trust building, safe environment building, relationship building practices that are geared around circles. The circles at Tier 1 are for the whole class. They are, like I said, relationship building circles and restorative circles. It helps build rituals and routines in the classroom so that students can feel that they are seen and heard, because every student has the right to speak in that circle. They have a talking object that they use to signify that whomever is holding that object is to be listened to, actively listened to and heard. So within that simple circle and that talking piece, students feel like they are a part of a community, they mean something, and that their voice matters. In the Tier 2, we use the same circles now that they've been practiced in Tier 1. A teacher can use those to talk about classroom management, to talk about projects they do, what they want to do, the students are interested in. If there's a problem that may have happened on the playground or a situation that involves the whole, she can bring the class together and they can talk about that problem, what occurred at recess maybe, and how they can fix it next time. So it opens them up to sort of own their own behavior management within the classroom. And then we rise up to the Tier 3 level of restorative justice circles. This is very trained, specifically trained. We're only training our social workers, our deans, APs, and these are scripted, researched, prepped harm circles that involve only the folks that have been involved in the harm, and each person, the victim or the aggressor, brings somebody to support them. This goes back to the indigenous roots that this actually has in Australia, that everybody in the circle has a support person there to speak up for them, and that everybody has their voice heard. All sides of the harm or the issue are heard and spoken of, and then they come up with a contract of an agreement and decide how to move forward and how they can repair the harm, not only to themselves, each other, but also to the community where this harm happened. So those are the 3 tiers that we use for restorative justice, and that is the core of the program that we're bringing into the district. I wanted to talk a little bit about the timeline. Next slide. So we all started this last fall. We started with the content alignment team that I put together. We researched 30 evidence-based social emotional curriculums, and we landed on Second Step because they did an updated version, because it was going to be completely online, and the training of teachers as they rolled in for a new teacher to be trained, they can train online. But we looked into the content, and it was more modern content. There's a lot of bullying lessons being taught, and it had a very close relationship with restorative practices. So those things were very important to us when we picked our Second Step explicitly taught curriculum. We started in the spring, we started the restorative justice trainings. They came into us from Center for Restorative Justice from Suffolk University. We continued with the pilot for Second Step in 9 classrooms, and we got feedback from those folks. Very good feedback again. It was user-friendly. The children and the students enjoyed and found the lessons very engaging and more modern depictions of the photographs and the videos that they use were more reflective of our demographic in Somerville, which was very important to us as well. We continued with restorative justice trainings. We continued with the 19 classrooms this year. Right now, as a part of a grant that I received, a mental health grant, we are piloting a universal screening tool in 3 classrooms, in 3 schools right now in 5th grade. And we have created a social emotional learning academy through the same grant at the end of the summer. That academy is going to have restorative justice training. Our SEL specialists, thank you very much for the funding for that. We are going to introduce and have a social emotional learning specialist in each K-8 school. This person in the school is going to be a teacher leader or a counselor leader. They are going to be we're going to train them to become very intimate with the platform of Second Step, and they're going to be trained in all 3 tiers of restorative justice, so they will be a resource in the building for all things social emotional. We have math coaches, we have ELA coaches, and now we have SEL coaches. I'm very proud that we're bringing this in here because I really do think it builds capacity, and it gives our experienced teachers and our new teachers a really firm, educated resource to turn to in their building. Those same SEL specialists are going to help me roll out Second Step training at the beginning of the school year, this coming school year. It's a very large group of people that we have to train in Second Step. They have to register their classes, and they have to take an hour-long training. So we're carving out about 3 hours at the beginning of the school year for all our pre-K to 8 teachers. At the direction of these trained SEL specialists, they will roll it out, and then we'll dig in and start teaching Second Step across the district. I'm planning on giving the same presentation to the PTA. Second Step does a mid-year check-in with the folks from Second Step. They'll come in and we'll do a mid-year check-in with the SEL specialists. We're going to continue training with restorative justice. And this just came up last week. Ori Harrell helped me find some grant money. So we are going to send 3 of our employees to the Center for Restorative Justice to get a restorative justice certificate to become a train the trainer trainer model. This was very important to me because whenever you bring a new initiative into a district, the one thing you want for it to happen is to have it have legs and have it hang around for a long time. And this was very important to bring in the trainer model with restorative justice. So moving forward, we have a solid way to continue to train our new teachers. And Second Step has that same online training modem so that we can continue to train teachers as they come in with SEL. And it's not a burden. It actually is something that we can internalize, which I'm really proud that we have that for us. I want to talk a little about the Second Step Academy, this grant I got. So we've created a Second Step Academy. It is July 17th to the 26th. We're offering 3 restorative justice trainings. Actually, I should say 4. One of those trainings is for students because we heard the voices of the principals and the students, and they wanted to be able to do Tier 1 circles, peer-led Tier 1 circles. So we have set aside that time. I know I'm very excited about that part. We've set aside a training for them in July, and we'll be recruiting students. We also have a full day of SEL specialist training. Like I've already kind of gone over that, so I won't repeat myself. And this is all in preparation for the rollout of Second Step registration and implementing the explicit lessons that we're starting. I do want to say that we are supporting, it is a big rollout. Rollouts are, Dr. Jessica Boston Davis knows from her rollout this year that you get very nervous about it, but I do feel that Second Step is going to provide us with tech specialists that day, so folks can call or go on a Zoom if they're having technical problems with the platform or they have any questions about the content. So we're going to have folks there backing up this rollout from Second Step, which I think is key in helping teachers with any questions they may have. I'm finishing up, and I'm going to bring Nadia up. I just wanted to talk about everything else that we offer. Beyond restorative justice, Second Step, we have CPI training every year for appropriate staff. We have positive intervention intervention systems and support systems in each building, and they are doing their working groups, and they're coming up with their own PBIS systems in each building. That is going to be in addition to restorative practices and in addition to Second Step. Our Student Services Department offers many PDs. We have a catalog full of professional development, much of which is SEL offerings. We partner with Massachusetts Partnerships for Youth. Our membership allows us to access to hundreds of webinars and professional development that are very current and well done, and we have our employees utilize that membership often because those are free to us. I want to bring up Nadia Curry to talk about this special initiative, and thank you for the funds to create this team, a social, emotional, and behavior crisis team, and she'll go over why we are doing this, and she's our mental health girl. There you go.
Hi, everyone. It's nice meeting all of you. My name is Nadia Curry. I'm the manager of school-based social workers. So we have noticed a couple trends this year within the school year already. And it's mostly our younger grades, and there's been a lot of kind of social, emotional, behavior crises that are occurring. And what's been going on is that it pulls from the school's student services team, so the deans, the counselors, the social workers, the APs are getting pulled away to kind of manage these crises. So we have been coming up with a district-wide social, emotional, and behavior crisis team. So this district team is going to be composed of a BCBA, a licensed clinical social worker, and a registered behavioral technician. So with the 3 of them being the team, they're able to go into these schools throughout the district, and they can offer consultation, so whether it's a generalized consultation or an individualized consultation, talking about best practices, interventions, they'll be able to go in and kind of like see what's going on through observations, collect some data, and do some crisis management based on the individual student needs. Also, they can provide training, whether this is de-escalation training, PD, some professional development on topics related to social, emotional, behavioral health. And the big thing, too, is they're going to be able to create, implement, and support behavior intervention plans based on the observations that they're doing and then the data that they're collecting on these students. students. And then another great thing that they can do in the moment is provide crisis support and management, whether it's coaching teachers or other staff, but also providing in-person support in the moment when these behaviors are occurring. So with all of this in place and our crisis team in place, we're hoping that we are better able to kind of support our schools and students. Next slide, please. And as our superintendent mentioned before, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So we have these awesome posters that we have put all over the schools just to kind of help promote awareness. We also have these pins that we have been giving out. If anyone is interested in one, we have some for you guys. We also have been coming up with some fun kind of school-wide activities that are suggestions during morning announcements. So some of these are just to promote mental health awareness across the board with all our K through 8s and high school students. So saying something nice to 3 people, introducing yourself to someone new, helping somebody with something, could be small or big, maybe like at lunch or recess, sitting by somebody new, and also just kind of putting it inward too and practicing self-care for ourselves, because we know that's very important, like going outside, like it was a beautiful day outside today. So those are just some things, some fun things we're doing as initiatives for the month. And then also we are doing a green dress-up day, as mentioned before, on Friday, May 24th, where everyone can wear green.
Thank you. I want to thank Nadia and Larry for helping me put together this presentation. They've been working very hard in our department. And now if, can we take questions if you have any questions?
Sure, we will have them. Ms. Parrish.
Thank you, through you. Thanks, as always, for being here with us and for bringing your colleagues. This was a lot of information.
It is.
But thank you. It's great. I just had one question about the students who will be trained to be peer leaders for Tier 1 restorative justice circles, if I understood that correctly.
You did.
What grade levels is that at, and how many, and how are those students going to be recruited?
So right now we have seats for 20 students. We are going to have 10 in the K through 8, so 2 students from each school, from each K to 8 school, and then 10 at the high school. So there'll be a total of 20 students that'll be trained in Tier 1 circles. And when a student is doing a Tier 1 circle, there will be also a trained teacher with them, helping them implement those circles. But that's what we're recruiting.
Sure. Ms. Patern, you can do a follow-up, and then I'll
thank you. Through you, Chair Krepchen. Regarding that, thank you for Ms. Barris's question. I was curious about the connection between the peer circle leaders and the peer mediation program.
I know they are very, you can say they're closely related, but we have our peer mediators. We have them in middle school and high school now. Mediation is a little bit different than restorative justice. Restorative justice just is foundational, creating relationships, and obviously mediation is when those relationships don't go exactly well. So we hope to get different students that maybe want to do the circles, same students that want to do the circles. We always love to see students stepping up and wanting to be a part of peer-to-peer, any subject, anything. So they're a little bit different, these roles, but we're happy to have them just the same if they want to do both, yeah.
I have Dr. Phillips and then Dr. Eckman. Dr. Phillips?
Thanks, through you, Chair. I think this might be going to the superintendent, but first of all, super impressed with the work you are doing. Like, so much of it, like SEL, restorative justice. We're talking about restorative justice is different than mediation. Like the new crisis intervention team, it's all really amazing. The thing that I am wondering about to the superintendent is just where are these SEL specialists in the budget? I just kind of missed that line item. Are they in the common planning time stipends?
Through the chair, those were some of the requisitions that we put in place for through the budget process. They were non-staffing, under non-staffing requirements or requests because it's a stipend So it didn't come through the staffing allocation, which is kind of a bigger line item. So where in the budget are they? I'll have to kind of go over the different ways in which we break down that information, but it's not on the staffing side.
Yeah, it's just a stipend, so they're not full-time employees. It's a teacher leader getting a stipend for a few hours work every week.
And just to confirm, that is in your budget, what we're talking about?
Yes. We have,
That was already, that's one of the...
yeah. Oh, yeah, I made sure it was in there.
Do you want to follow up?
Yeah, I just wanted to remind members that we don't generally break down the stipends in the budget. It's just a line item for stipending in general. And we don't usually ask for a breakdown of how those stipends are spent.
Thank you for that reminder. Dr. Ackman?
Thank you. Through the chair, thank you. This is wonderful. Just sort of in my own work around the state, I know you know this, I know we know this, but just realizing how far ahead of many districts we are with this amazing work. And I'm curious, sort of, when you talked about, I forget your term for it, but like the acute...
crisis team?
Crisis team, thank
Yes.
you. Is, like, are there plans on where they will be in the city? Like, are there, I mean, I assume we have data on where they might be needed most. I don't remember you talking about it. If you did, I apologize. But do you mind just sort of
Sure, I
letting
can
us
go
know,
over our
like,
reasoning.
logistically, what?
So our reasoning behind creating this team is because we find that there are about 5 or 6 students in each building that are using all the resources, and so therefore taking those resources and supports away from the rest of the school. So we wanted to create a district-wide team. Nadia is going to be heading it. She's a licensed social worker, and she's the manager of the building-based social workers. And then we're hiring a BCBA, and special ed is hiring a RBT. And this team is mobile, and that is the point. Like, they can come in and they can spend a few weeks in one classroom or 2 classrooms that are popping off, for lack of a better way to put it, in a school, versus all the folks in that school having to concentrate on. That was the one thing that the data showed, and the one thing that we heard from principals and SST teams is that we are spending all our time in this 1 or 2 classrooms when we really would like to be focusing on the rest of the school. So this team is going to be mobile. They're experts. They're going to come in, and they're not just going to spend 1 or 2 days. And that was part of the we have to absolutely spend time observing in a classroom, understanding what is going on with classroom management, classroom behavior, what are the preceding behaviors or things happening in a classroom. So that's why you have to do an FBA, you have to do a observation, and then you have to write a behavior, an informed behavior plan that is focused on changing the behavior, not just to check in with the counselor. And we want to have more behavior plans that are in-depth and more robust, that are going to change behavior. So this is the, why we've created this team, and we really believe in it. And we, other districts are doing. We are ahead. I would have to say thank you for saying that, because every time I go to any type of a conference, we are a few years ahead of what districts already have going. So I'm very proud every time I go to one of these things. But this is something that they had in Framingham, and so we used that model. We looked at their data, and we decided that it would be a great opportunity for us to bring into Somerville.
Dr. Carmona wanted to speak, and then
Just providing a little bit of context on that. So the focus of the team is to build capacity. As Liz mentioned, sometimes students who have trauma or who have other needs require the support that they need to. Is that right? So I think the issue is I don't want to ever to look at the supports that kids need and then have any prejudgment around that. Is unfortunately every child is different, and the needs that we have are different, and so the most equitable thing to do is to provide the resources that we need to provide depending on the needs of the students. We also actually have used a little bit of that system in place already with Kathleen Baylor's. She, in her team, also has had a BCBA who we have used also to come into different buildings to do a level of that. So the practice itself of bringing clinicians to provide a little bit of input into the challenges that we face in the classroom is something that we actually have done already. This will be at a larger scale. And often what happens when you ask the teacher, well, what's wrong, what happened? Often they say, well, I have no clue, it's just coming out of the blue. And so sometimes we miss those antecedents. And I think building capacity is critical in having a long-lasting impact on how we address the issue of classroom management. So just wanted to...
Kathleen Baylor's model was a great model, and it brought us a lot of data. So she was very helpful in helping us move forward with this crisis team.
I have Mr. Bitone, then Ms. Bitone, then Dr. Ackman, then Dr. Phillips. Mr. Bitone.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Director Doncaster, thank you for providing this excellent work, and your colleagues. I am so excited about this because the thing I hear most from families, and before I was sitting in this seat, and I'm sure long after I'm sitting in the seat, is, when you're talking to a parent or a student, it's always about the one or two kids that blew up their classroom that day, So, and the quicker we can intervene and disrupt disruptions, especially if they are becoming chronic, the better. And one thing that I really want to see our district work on, and I think that this is a great step in that direction, is building credibility that our adults and the caregivers in the schools are able to successfully intervene in very difficult situations with students who are dysregulated and who need help getting back on track. Yeah. And it affects not only those students, but the ones who are sitting next to them and sitting next to them. So it is absolutely critical, and I think sort of a keystone of our education, that if we can address this with the students who are in crisis, it will have a ripple effect across the classroom and across the school. So nothing but positive thoughts for me, and I really hope that this is a model for other districts, as you mentioned.
Thank you. And I'd like to just frame that by we consider these students to have lagging skills in the SEL area. So we like to look at the whole child. What is their background? What did they bring to the table? What is their story? And what are their lagging skills? And so we support those, teaching them their lagging skills to change behavior.
Thank you for that clarification.
Ms. Bitone?
Thank you. Through you, Chair Krepchen. Thanks to everyone for being here. Thanks for modeling your green mental health awareness wardrobe. I will work on that. Now I have my pin. I very much appreciate the timeline and where you see yourselves for this work for the next school year. One thing I'm curious about is the longer-term plan to sort of systematize and sustain this program. Last week my 22-year-old son was here. He went through Somerville Public Schools, and I've watched a lot of waxing and waning around SEL programs. And I want to move forward in such a way that we have a longer-term time horizon. We're not just looking at our rollout, but they're looking at what are we going to be doing for the next 4 to 5 years to make sure that we sustain our capacity and make sure that new staff gets trained and that we refresh. And sometimes I feel like we go like this and everything kind of settles out and our kids are not getting what they need. Yeah. So you might not be able to answer that right now, but this is a question I continue to bring up around curriculum is, how can we get ourselves to the point where, we put something in, we put this investment, and then we continue to invest appropriately asking the school committee to make sure we're funding appropriately, so this capacity is sustained over time, and then, reviewed and turned over and changed to something new.
I have to say, one of the stopgaps in that is that when new teachers come aboard, and we did hear that from Second Step, the old Second Step, that teachers, we did a survey, and some teachers didn't know we even had Second Step. They didn't have the material in their room. That's why I really stand behind Second Step as an online platform, and the training is within the platform. So anytime a teacher comes on, we're going to set aside an hour for them, and they're going to do the training, and then they're going to connect with their SEL specialist in the building to make sure they completely understand and are prepped to be able to start implementing lessons right away. So that was very important, that we had sustainability for new teachers coming in, and the same thing with restorative justice. With this grant that I have, and we can have now train the trainers with restorative justice moving forward. I being a pre-K teacher and watching for 12 years and having curriculum come in and out, that was one of my biggest frustrations, was they would start off strong and then it would wane and wax, as you said. I'm not letting that happen, not on my watch. It's not going to happen, because I know what it's like for a teacher to feel like I did all this PD and then 2 years later it's gone. So this is Second Step and restorative justice are here to stay, and they're going to be sustained for a long period of time. And over time we are going to see the difference in our conduct referrals, in our mental health of our students, but you have to stick with something for a long time, so it has to be able to be continuously trained every year and refreshed every year.
Dr. Ackman and then Dr. Phillips.
Thank you. Through the chair, this is going to be my comment in response to what you noted earlier, but I think it's also in response to my colleague who made an excellent point, is I just want to highlight that you looked at data and created a program responding to the data relevant to our school. And to your point, I truly hope that is how we sustain this, right? Is that we look at those data and, if the crisis team, you're great, got the
social emotional crisis team.
If the crisis team isn't doing what we need, that you're going to make adaptations. And one of the things that I've appreciated since Dr. Cremona has been on is that we have put in front of us data that's where we see areas of growth, and so please keep using data, keep being frank about where things need to change and adapt, and we can learn from our data, because I think that sets up a culture for the whole district, and does keep these very needed programs at the forefront, and as well as the train the trainer model. But to me, really, I just want to take a moment to celebrate the use of data.
Yeah. Dr. Phillips and then Ms. Parrish.
Thanks. Through you, Chair. I also have a question about data. I had a wondering, it came up on the last slide when we were talking about the number of students served, and it made me think about, there's all these guidelines like 20% of your kids should be getting Tier 2 services, and 2 to 7% should get Tier 1. And it made me wonder, how does our proportion fall out? That may not be data you have now, but at some point I'd love to know.
Well, in general, the outline of that tiered intervention is about 80% of the students are all set with Tier 1 interventions, about 10 to 15% near Tier 1 and Tier 2, and about 3 to 5% need all three. That's how it lays out in the research that is done in the SEL learning community. Yes.
Sorry, I'm asking for our percentages here.
I don't have those right on me right now, but that's the general percentages that we use.
Ms. Parrish.
Thank you. Through you, I just was curious about the crisis management team. You talked a little bit about what each person on that team would do, and I was wondering if teacher coaching is also a part of that, like classroom management, if they see that is part of, a contributing factor?
Yes, it is definitely part of it, the consultation and the training. So we will be doing training. So what Nirali did through Kathleen Baylor, she's the social worker for early childhood, she would go in and observe and look at the whole classroom and that particular student, come up with a behavior plan, and make sure that she trained not only the paraprofessional and the teacher would understand what that student, the supports that student needs, and then she would be there for a few days or maybe even a week or two to train that paraprofessional, and she wouldn't leave the classroom unless she knew that the teacher and the para understood the supports that were supposed to be in place, the data they were supposed to take, and they understood the behavior plan. And we're using that same model moving forward. So there will definitely be teacher coaching, teacher training, para training within that classroom environment that needs that extra support.
All right, if there are no new questions or comments, yep.
Thank you, through the chair. I just wanted to make a comment and just really applaud my colleague Liz and her leadership. It's been quite impressive and inspirational for me in my leadership journey to watch somebody so passionately put forth. It has been really a champion for restorative justice practices and getting our whole district trained and really centering her department around social, emotional, and well-being and not around discipline. And I've watched kind of that passion meet the systems level leadership of, kind of meeting, myself included, a little bit of questions around the restorative justice training, but over the past 2 years, I've been really impressed of how we're really training everyone with full day pullout. So I just think that's really something that I wanted to highlight and just commend, because it's quite inspirational for my own self and really remarkable as we think about the things that make Somerville an amazing district, and I think this is one of them. And then to Ms. Barish's point, I was thinking about, so Liz, and if Liz is not there, often Larry or another member of her team often come to sit on our district instructional leadership team, join academic cabinet meetings, and there's no denying the very interconnectedness of the work between academics overall, between great and strong teaching and learning practices, including behavior management, classroom management, and the work that Liz is leading with her department and her team. And so I just wanted to say we continue that collaboration, and I think we can even do a more intentional job about thinking about just classroom management overall and how the coaching can be collaborative. So that's something that I noted, because I think it's a great point for us to work on together. But I just wanted to just give
Thank you
Liz
for that
and her
comment.
team
And I'd like to end with, for me, the passion comes from, I'm going to cry, but every student deserves to be seen and heard, and they deserve to feel safe at school, and they deserve to be the best, come and with their best selves, and if they can't, we're here to support them. I truly believe in this, in the work that I do. Sorry.
Oh, thank you, Liz. All right, thank you again. Dr. Carmona, the rest of your
Just a quick follow-up on that. Also, I wanted to thank Liz and her team, Director Doncaster and her team. And I know there's a question about data that has come up multiple times. Let me be honest about that. We are still norming around data. Just a little reference point. There's a lot in the literature around office referrals and how do we show up our understanding of racial dynamics and demographics. That data, we don't have a very robust norming around that. But I know Liz and her team are actually working with assistant principals to do that kind of work. It is, I have to say though, we are really sticklers to the direction of making sure that we have a system in place. As I always say, we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. We are heading in that direction, and this today, what you saw, is part of that. Again, we're not there yet, but I have to say that we're gaining some traction towards that direction. So I just wanted to emphasize that. Sorry, it has taken me quite some time to get through my report, but there's many things to celebrate. I also wanted to remind the team that we have Teacher Appreciation Week. We did this last week. We did the Principal Appreciation Week, and now this week we're celebrating Teacher Appreciation Week. And so I wanted to remind remind you of that. I know that through my entry plan process, I have engaged with families, the students, and the community in general. One of the feedback points that I have received multiple times is that students have expressed that they repeatedly expressed that they find joy in learning through many of the teachers that they have in their schools. Also, families have celebrated the expertise of our educators, and I just wanted to highlight that we are lucky that we have a group of dedicated and innovative educators teaching our students. So thank you to Somerville Public School educators, and I really mean that, and we need to make sure that we celebrate the folks who are doing the work. I always say teaching is rocket science. And I'm going to have our assistant superintendent for, before I mention that, I know Mr. Massa is not here today. He had surgery, so he's not able to be present with us today. So I wanted to have Assistant Superintendent Jessica Boston Davis with a couple of announcements.
Thank you, through the chair. Also, I think this happens to be Nurse Recognition Week, but on Wednesday of this week is May 8th is National School Nurse Day. So in addition to celebrating our educators, we're celebrating our school nurses as well. It goes right along the theme of health and wellness, as we think about our school nurses do provide mental health supports, needed medical care, and guidance for our students, and really guidance for our staff members as well. So thank you to our school nursing team for keeping our students safe. So thank you to them as well. And one other awareness day today is Digital Wellness Day, so all under the theme of wellness. This is an opportunity for families to explore their approach to digital media consumption through a wellness lens. So if you're looking for key pointers for ensuring safe digital use for your child, we've shared a full week of digital wellness practices on our website. And with that, I think I'm going to pass it over back to Superintendent Carmona.
And to finish, I also have an update, and I wanted to share the update, but I realized that there are so many important things that our SFLC and Early Education Department share with us on a regular basis. We have, I think, one of the most impressive pillars of our education system is SFLC and the early childhood education system. So I'm going to have our director, Kathleen Baylor, come up and share a couple of the updates that are critical for the functioning of our early childhood system.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for giving me a few minutes. I know we've had a long night, and it was an inspiring night, too. So on the topic of wellness and social emotional learning, the Early Education Department, I'm the Director of Early Ed, Kathleen Baylor, and we partner with our SFLC to promote kindergarten transition. And this year we started a transition advisory committee, and they worked all year, and they came up with 3 transition resources that I just wanted to inform you and the public about. So the first one, the slide that, or the picture that you see right there is our Getting Ready for Kindergarten workshop that we're going to have on June 6th from 9 to 10 o'clock a.m. It is in the morning, and it's a little odd that it's in the morning, but it's virtual, and we found from our data with our enrollment sessions that actually 9 to 10 o'clock works really well for young families. In our enrollment sessions, we had over 70 people attend, so we're going to offer it again. It's a free virtual workshop, and it's designed to provide information and tools to support every child's transition to kindergarten. And we're proud to offer interpretation in Spanish, Portuguese, Haitian Creole, ensuring that all families can access this valuable resource. In addition, we created a family guide that will be the basis of this workshop that we will give to all families and students entering in kindergarten. And the guide provides families with key information about public school kindergarten classrooms and the staff that support children's educational journey at Somerville Public Schools. It helps families have some resources and ideas for supporting children's readiness to kindergarten, some ideas and activities, and ways they can be part of the Somerville Public School Committee. And that's a really important part, that we want families to engage in our schools, and we're here to help them do so. We will be sending printed copies of this booklet home to all of our families in our partner centers throughout the community, as well as our public school preschool classrooms. And then we're giving printed copies to the enrollment office so they can give them to people who are not associated with either of those groups to give out. So we want to make sure all the families have this exciting resource. And then the last piece is we're creating an I'm going to school story for each school. And right now we're going around taking pictures of the ins and outs of all the schools. So each family will receive this I'm going to school story. It's digital. You can read it with your children, and it will have pictures of the school principal, the counselor, the nurses, where you hang your backpack, things like that. So families can support children at home and read that over and over again. I'm sure children will enjoy that as well as they prepare for this exciting new step. So that is it from me. Any questions?
That is very exciting. I love the idea of the story book about each school. That's fabulous. Ms. Batone?
Through the chair, thank you, Ms. Baylor, for being here and sharing this. I was curious if that's going to be recorded, this session?
Yes.
Okay.
It will be recorded, and it will be put on our website.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I think this is the first time you're doing this.
It is. All three of these is the first time.
Yep.
This came from this committee's work.
This is awesome. And this is, this is a pilot, or you're rolling this out, but it'd be really exciting at some point if we could offer this in Spanish, in Portuguese, as
Yeah,
opposed to just
instead of
interpreting.
translation.
I'm not expecting that this year, but I think it's something to kind of put food for thought, because it's something I think the district has tried to do in pieces, but I think we need, as a district, to make a more concerted effort to be doing things directly in other languages when those populations are willing to be present. So
yeah, thank you for sharing that. This year, my department put out a Power of Parenting workshop, and we actually put it out in Spanish this year, and it was very popular. So I thank you for bringing that up, and I will definitely bring that to the committee. And just on go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Just also a little aside, I heard today that the state is putting together a transition guide for kindergarten and for early childhood, and they're featuring Somerville Public Schools work.
Nice.
So, yeah. A little plus here for our work. Yeah.
Actually, so in part, building off Mr. Patone's excellent point and idea, I know every year we end up using efficiency dollars to hire consultants to look at a handful of things at the district. I would encourage us this year to look at both where it is that we can advance our language services to be other language centered when necessary. And so I agree with that, Ms. Patone, on that. The other thing I was thinking about for that was we do so many excellent, innovative innovations as a district. And yet we let the narrative be dominated by test scores. I would love to spend some time next year thinking about how we better tell the story, especially since the reality is our district is getting poorer and browner. So I'm not expecting drastic test score improvements in the next few years, which isn't to say I don't expect to see drastic improvements in the next few years. So I want to tell the story of all the things that we are doing right and that could be modeled to other districts so that we can explain what are we doing with all this money we're spending in a better, more coherent way than we've historically done. And things like SFLC, which are, statewide, if not national models, should be highlighted in ways we have not done before. So I'd love to think of how we can do that better.
Dr. Eichmann.
As a follow-up, since our theme is Somerville leads the way, I feel like that could be the tagline for showing how we're leading the way.
Mr. Bitton?
Thank you, Chair, through you. Ms. Baylor, the kindergarten transition, especially the story for each school, I know, well, as a parent, I know that young minds crave repetition and gain comfort through it. And especially neurodivergent minds, you know, the kids on the autism spectrum can really benefit from that and gain comfort where they might, if entering a new situation, might feel anxious. This resource seems like exactly what those children might need, and this made my night, so thank you for sharing that, and I'm positive it's going to bring joy and comfort to a lot of kids and families over the next, when it's rolled out and available, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. We definitely developed the story based off of the social story model used for children with ASD. Yeah. So it's because of that, it's what I have found is when we meet the needs of one population of learners, we meet the needs of all learners. So, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us this evening.
Yes.
Thank you. Your report, Dr.
Thank you, Kathleen, for your feedback, support, and the clarity about the message and how we have to strengthen our early childhood part of the learning that we do here. So thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
That concludes your report.
That concludes my report.
So if there are no objections, I'm going to take things out of order because Mr. Green needs to leave early, and so we're going to discuss the reorganization plan now. No objects? Okay. Dr. Carmona, do you want to frame this for us?
Yes, I know last time we were here, we were discussing the different elements of the reorg. We also there was some feedback as to having a diagram or a graphic that will outline what the reorg looks like. So I shared that with you. It should be in your packets. The only thing that is different in the reorg that I shared with you is that we made an adjustment. The position of principal coach was deleted from the actual proposal. There are many reasons for that, and I necessarily don't know if I want to get into all of those, but I received feedback from the school committee, received feedback from the principals. There were some significant costs associated to that, and part of what I'm trying to do with the reorg was to keep most of the student-facing positions available. I still believe in the merits of having someone designated to work with and building the capacity of our principals and assistant principals. So it builds a pipeline as well as a career pathway for our principals. However, I do probably agree that the timing is probably not the right timing at this point. So that is one of the items that I remove out of the reorg proposal that I share with you. Aside from that, we have the same elements that you have seen and we discussed during the last meeting. So I don't know if you have some questions or...
There's a suggested motion in the packet, and then we can take questions, or we can just go straight to questions. Dr. Phillips?
I'm actually going to go straight to a motion and move to accept the superintendent's reorganization plan and to eliminate the position of assistant superintendent for operations upon the recommendation of the superintendent.
Second.
I have a motion by Dr. Phillips, seconded by Dr. Ackman, and now we will have discussion. Ms. Baton.
Thank you, Chair Krepchen, through you to the superintendent. Thank you for putting together the organizational chart. It really reflects the depth of capacity of this district and what we're trying to accomplish, and the team that's here to do this work. And it's actually really illuminating, and I'm still absorbing it, for sure. One thing that I might have missed, and I apologize, we moved the grants out of communications. Where does it sit now?
Should be in finance.
And it might be here and I might just missed it.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to take a quick look at that, but as you know, it's very complex, and I wish I could take credit for all the breakdown on the page, but that's the person on my right here sitting down and spent half a day moving things around. That is a good question. I have to look carefully to see where it is, but it is within the finance structure, which is most of the time that's where grants live in relationship to other districts as well.
Thank you.
I had Mr. Green, and then Dr. Ackman, and then Mr. Bitone. Mr. Green?
I want to thank the superintendent. I think certainly for as long as I've been on this committee, and I think since Mr. Bitone has been one of the voices doing it probably before me, there's been a real push to try to help SPS think in terms of positions, not people. And the reason that's a struggle is because it's hard to do, and it usually involves people who we like or even love, who and their roles may not longer fit the organization, and so it's a tough thing to do. So I appreciate that we're moving that direction. There'll be plenty of time to thank Mr. Mazza for his service when he is here, and we can actually do that in a public celebratory moment, which is more than deserved. But I think, listening to public comments, I think there are a couple things we should probably say to the public. And the first thing is, and you can see it if you look at the org chart, which, by the way, we've never had before. So the reason we all gave an applause to Ms. Garcia for our org chart is because we've asked for that for at least 10 years and never received it, so thank you. But when you look at it, in a very real sense, we are reverting back to the org chart status quo. This is, having a lot of the operational functions around the Office of Chief of Staff is the org chart we had on June 30th, 2022. This is not an extraordinary change, and I appreciate the superintendent's deep discipline and commitment to thinking about how we can get as much of our money in the school building as possible. So thank you for making hard calls. That's the job.
I had Mr. Bitone, and then Dr. Ackman.
Thank you, through you, Chair, to the superintendent. This is a very minor question about the org chart. Does this reflect the status right now, or does this reflect the status in the org chart after the reorganization?
That's after. If you look at the date, May 3rd, 2024, it is to this day, but is envisioning what the changes
Thank you.
will be. Yeah.
Dr. Ack?
Thank you. Through the chair, I think this is the superintendent. I would like to echo my colleagues' appreciation, and again for Ms. Garcia, because yes, this is really well laid out. In looking at the director of operations, who I see oversees technology, and that certainly makes sense, I agree with my colleague that we need to be focused on positions, not people, but I would like to note something I've heard from our colleagues on the city side who work with the current assistant superintendent for operations, and I think this goes back to something my colleague, Ms. Bitone, has said many times about how, you'll tell me if I phrase this wrong, how we need to be better clients, thank you, I was gonna say users, thank you, clients to the city, is that, the assistant superintendent of operations was known as as one of the few really strong bridges between the city and the schools, where we're still fairly siloed. And I know everything can't be represented on a chart, but I guess what I would say is that my request is, whether this is the director of operations, whether, and I think you've said that you plan on taking on some of this role, Assistant Superintendent Mazza was known for responding and showing up. And that matters. And so my hope is, whether it's the director of operations or whoever it is, that sort of the floor of expectation for the person who will be attempting to fill some of that role is that like the showing up, the responsiveness is baked in, because I think it has engendered trust through some very difficult times. And, I think with the ask, it is reasonable that we are trusting you, Dr. Carmona, with like this new organization. I certainly trust you with it, but like I've heard enough consternation from enough disparate sources that I want to make sure that like, a steady communication back and forth, showing up, that's like the floor of expectation for whoever will be in that more direct communications role.
So if I may respond to that. So totally agree with you. I think that, and I think as Mr. Green said a minute ago, sometimes, we think in terms of the emotional gap that is not going to be present, and I totally agree with that. But I also heard the word being better clients, is that right? And in my mind, I think that to me is one of the areas in which we need to improve. Being a better client to me means having a system that is reliable, that is also accommodates the needs of the client. And I feel that in that area, we still have a very willing partner, but we haven't found some systems that need to work for both of us. And I can tell you the DPW responds really well, and they're great at meeting us. But we still need to have systems in place, and those systems in place still have not been realized. And so, even how we prioritize what needs to be fixed or not, we are still not even in the same place. What does capital planning and DPW do is still a place that we have to have more unity around that. And so Amara will be doing a lot of the work around logistics and a lot of the work around communication. As I said, also, I'm really invested in making sure that we get to those systems. Again, I do feel that being a better client is a call that it resonates with me.
Okay. Is there further discussion, deliberation? Okay. Seeing none, I have a motion by Dr. Phillips, seconded by Dr. Ackman. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, that brings us to reports of subcommittees. We have 4 reports. I will entertain a motion. Anyone want to take it?
I move to approve all the reports on the agenda.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion to approve all the reports. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to an MSBA update. Oh, yes, Mr. John.
Through you, Chair Corruption, to my colleague, Mr. Bitone, do we know when the next building facilities meeting is scheduled?
Through you, Chair, to Ms. Patone, thank you for asking. I have been in intermittent communication with our colleague, Mr. Davis, who chairs our counterpart committee that's part of City Council. They have been having a very difficult time finding a day that works. I have pressed that this is a priority. I have raised this issue with Mr. Ewan Campen to express the urgency of this matter. And I am also frustrated that we don't seem to be able to find a date on the calendar that works for everyone.
Ms. Patone?
Thank you, Mr. Bitone, through you. Can I request that the chair also reach out to the president of the City Council? At this rate, we will not meet before the end of our school year, and that is unacceptable in my opinion. We should be, in my opinion, I was on this committee at bare minimum meeting every other month. We've met once, and that's not okay.
I am happy to do my best. Okay, that brings us to the MSBA update. Dr. Carmona.
Through the chair, I believe that you received a memo from the mayor about the MSBA. So that memo was submitted to us, and an update on the status of the school building committee for the Winter Hill and potentially the Brown School building was stated in that update. And as it states, the members of the SBC have been selected by the mayor, and the roster has been submitted to the MSBA as expected. That was last week. Throughout this process, my team and I have worked collaboratively with the city and the mayor's team to interview and select volunteers on the school building committee that are representative of our community. I'm deeply grateful to all who have volunteered their time and expertise to building our school communities for the next generation. And I'm particularly grateful to the two caregiver representatives from the Winter Hill and the Brown schools who stepped up to join a team that will design a building that will meet the needs of our students for decades to come. So again, the memo is in your hands, or was in your hands, and you see both the description as well as the makeup and the composition of the committee.
Mr. Green?
I have 3 questions, so I'll ask one and then I'll get back in the queue. And it is regarding the student representative. The word from the city was that the intent was to get a Somerville High student, and I just wanted to know what the hang-up is. We did it for the high school building project, and I believe they were a voting member, were they not? The student member of the high school building committee, were they a voting member? I believe they were. I might be wrong, but that was my understanding. And so I would love to know from the city what the hang-up is on getting as they put non-voting student member this time.
Okay, we can certainly ask. We'll take that question back. And Dr. Phillips, and then Ms. Barish.
Next time anyone talks to the mayor, please thank her for this update. My question is, when is the school building committee going to start meeting?
That is a great question that I think we will have to get back to. We'll add that to the list. Ms. Barish and then Ms. Patone.
I noticed that Mr. McGuire is listed here, which makes sense as he's the Brown School principal, but as we all know, he's retiring. I assume that he will just be replaced with whoever is hired, even if they're an interim?
That is correct. And we can submit, we'll have to submit that to MSBA for replacement, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Patone?
Thank you, Chair Krupchen. Through you, I wanted to thank Member Green for volunteering to do this work and representing the school committee, and I also want to compliment the mayor. This team is much more community represented than I saw in the high school team, so I think it's going to be a really interesting, people have great talents and experiences, and I'm excited for how this is moving forward. It seems to have a different flavor and more community-based than maybe what I experienced on the high school team, so that's a compliment to the mayor and her leadership.
Mr. Green, you had another question, and then I'll go back to Ms. Barish.
Sure. The second question is about the composition. And again, this question really for the city, but I think we should be documenting all of these. So currently, Mr. Raish is the interim chair, which implies that is not the permanent chair. I know that for the high school building committee, we ended up hiring a former superintendent. I'm looking at Tony's last name right now. Parentazzi, thank you. To do it as a consultant job, and I was curious to know if that was the line the city was playing on during this time, is hiring a consultant to chair, or what their vision was for filling the chair permanently.
Dr. Carmona, did you have any thoughts, or this? We'll add it to the list.
I have no reference to that, but it does a question.
Can add it to the list.
Correct.
To ask
Yeah.
the mayor. Ms. Barish?
I was a little surprised to see that the mayor is filling 3 of these roles, and I just wondered if that is consistent with how it was done for the high school, or if that's different. And again, another question you probably can't answer, but I was just curious about why that was, if it isn't sort of how it's typically done.
Again, we will add it to the list, because I certainly don't know. Okay, any other questions that I don't know the answer to? Okay, seeing none, that brings us to report out of coordinated office hours. These did not make it to the packet yet, but I will ask Erica to add them to the packet. But Mr. Bitone will give us a brief summary.
Thank you, Chair, through you. You took the easiest of my jobs, which was to request that these information go into the packet.
And just quickly, they are in the packet.
Oh,
Erica did them, so my
great.
apologies.
Lovely. Thank you. Just, you know, it's the gift that keeps on giving here. So I won't belabor, the information is in your packets. I will mention that members of the school committee held 11 separate office hour events and spoke with many constituents. There were a range of topics discussed, from facilities issues inside individual schools, budget matters, field trips, and the school committee support for them, advocacy against contracts with specific companies, a third evaluator position for SPED, lunch and recess. There were many comments about lunch and recess, after school and community schools, our academic programs, of course, the rebuilding of the Winter Hill School and whether or not to include the Brown in that. And many, many more. So I will not belabor it, but this information is in our packets, and I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you for putting that together. Are there any questions? Yep, Ms. Bitone.
Thank you, through you. One thing in particular about after school I just wanted to highlight was I've had multiple questions from people about the weighted lottery for after school, and the fact that there was an additional survey that was submitted that had a lot of demographic information, that at least one person reached out and said, I kind of felt uncomfortable. What does this mean? Does this mean I won't get a spot? I really applaud the efforts of our district to be as inclusive as possible, and also kind of push ourselves into a space where we're offering our desired slots to the students that, quote, need the most. I mean, I really want to be able to be doing that, but I also think we have to be incredibly clear with the community and overuse word transparent about how we're going to do that. So I think for myself, I want to see, to make sure those students that don't have the other options are getting access to this type of programming, but I think we have to be very clear about how we're doing that and how we're going to share that with families so that people's expectations are set. Because right now we're in a deficit space around not having enough slots.
Yep. Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments? Ms. Bitone?
Sorry. I had one other thing, and I apologize. It didn't come in my office hours, but it came in that space of the time. I always consider every email I get during office hours as part of this. And I'm sure people are aware that there's a community group that's working on pursuing decarbonization efforts of our school buildings. And I just wanted to flag to let my colleagues know, if they haven't heard from other people, that this is something that is really important. I'm supportive of it. They've actually proposed possibly a resolution from the school committee to be more directive around what we expect and to share that with the city. I'd love to follow up with you, Chair Krepchen, and discuss.
Mr. Bitone, you can.
Yeah, to follow up on that point, may I?
Yep.
Through you, Chair. I'm grateful that you brought that up. I have also been speaking with advocates around carbon neutral schools and efforts that the city could take to move us quickly in that direction. And I will be sponsoring a resolution, bringing that forward for next committee meeting. I think
that is the plan, yes.
That's the plan. So, and I'm happy to share it with you or anyone else who would like to see it beforehand.
Okay. With nothing else on that topic, that brings us to field trips.
I move to approve 50 eighth grade students from Argenziano to travel to Canopy Lake Park in Salem, New Hampshire via bus. The student cost is $30. And as we learned today, from June 24th to 29th, one SHS student to travel to Atlanta, Georgia to compete in the Skills USA national competition. The travel will be via airplane and the student cost is $0.
Second.
I have a motion by Dr. Ackman, seconded by Ms. Patone. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to items from committee members. Does anyone have anything this evening? Dr. Phillips?
Could we get an update at an upcoming meeting about community schools enrollment? I'm hearing a lot about it from constituents who are very nervous this week, so it would be good to just have some information sometime soon.
Yep. Okay.
They're in the docket for a presentation.
They're already on the docket for a presentation. Oh, perfect. Great. Ms. Patone?
Thank you, through you, Chair Corruption. Just to follow up to Dr. Phillips. Also, some more clarity in terms of how we communicate out. I guess I've heard some, and I don't know if this is true or not, that some families are hearing something and some aren't. So that would be something to understand a little bit better, that maybe we do it by school, or maybe I'm misinformed, but I'd love it to be more uniform so that people are all finding out at the same time whether or not they have a spot.
I think the specificity.
I
think the specificity as to what is the feedback or that I would like to give my team, it would be great. I know we're collaborating with SFLC to make sure that we do a robust outreach to families. So, and any feedback around that is more specific, that will be very helpful.
All right. Are there any other items from board members? Seeing none, do we have condolences this evening? Okay.
The school committee sends its deepest condolences to the family of Nina Romano, retired Somerville Public Schools special education teacher for almost 40 years.
And with that, we are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.